So Transformers 1 is genuinely one of the best movies to come out this year and is really interesting as it's the first animated theatrical movie to be released from this franchise since the 1980s. And I really do think that Paramount are in such a good and strong position right now, as they have got so many brilliant family brands and such strong and iconic and well-known IP that they're actually doing a brilliant job in terms of delivering in the movie landscape with all of these brilliant IP. And it's really interesting what's happening with the Transformers movies within a live-action space, as they seem to have so many different timelines being told right now. So when I heard that they're going to be doing an origin storyline for how the Transformers came to be, billions of years before the live action movies, to be honest, I was a little bit apprehensive and a little bit skeptical as to whether or not they're going to be able to deliver on it. And I am one of the biggest animated fans, and I have been a little bit disappointed with the animated movies coming out recently, as they definitely do skew a lot more towards a younger audience than an all ages audience. So to my surprise and absolute delight, Transformers 1 really does do animation properly, as it's not only for an all ages audience, they're actually not afraid to have darker aspects within their storytelling in this movie, so they really respect their audience. So I honestly think Transformers 1 did such a good job. And also, at a time where people are a little bit bored of origin storylines, especially in the superhero space, as people just want to dive straight into the proper storytelling material, here Transformers 1 sweeps in and really does demonstrate why origin storylines can actually and how they can actually be really impactful. And it does a really interesting job in a very similar way to how Star Wars does do prequel storytelling in terms of interlinking all of the things that are going to happen in the future, so that you can spot certain Easter eggs right from the beginning. And speaking of Star Wars and Disney and Marvel at large, I feel like they do a really good job in terms of following the early blueprint that these films were adopting in terms of what made them proper household names and true billion-dollar franchises. I feel like Transformers 1 just models it really, really well in terms of having a lot of action and balancing this with a lot of dark storytelling, true emotional moments, very high stakes, a lot of light relief moments, and like I said, a lot of tragedy. So it just follows the Anakin Skywalker blueprint in such a good way, so that when you do see the turn eventually happening, that you do know is coming, it is just so heart-wrenching, and I just feel like they captured it so brilliantly. As for the majority of this movie, you are just following the true friendship and the true bond between Orion Pax and D16, and from a sophisticated storytelling perspective, they definitely do plant a few seeds in terms of the things that do wind these characters up. So it's really, really deep. It's not just very light top-line storytelling. Actually, they really do go into the core of these characters, what makes them tick, and why and how is this friendship ultimately going to be destroyed and turned into the ultimate rivalry. So it's actually pretty unreal, as there is always something going on. It's very, very fast-paced. It's very inviting to new audiences, whilst also really satisfying the existing fan base. So like I keep saying, the Transformers 1 movie just did everything right. And if the awesome storytelling wasn't enough, they have got a massive number of A-list talent voicing these iconic characters. So let's go through them one by one. So first up, of course, we have brilliant Chris Hemsworth voicing an early version of Optimus Prime called Orion Pax. Now, it's really interesting, as of course Cullen is so notorious and connected to this character, so they could have had a situation very similar to Chris Evans voicing Lightyear, and people just absolutely revolting and not accepting it at all. Like I said, the same thing could have happened here, and it may well happen here, but I honestly think Chris Hemsworth just did it right in terms of not only doing a bit of a Ewan McGregor in terms of trying to voice the character in a very similar way to how he will be voiced in the future, but also just infusing a lot of youth, a lot of innocence, a lot of playful aspects into this character, so that you can actually believe that it is a younger, more playful version. And I just love this character. I feel like he is the ultimate protagonist, so full of life, everybody is rooting for him, and he truly is on the hero's journey in terms of being right at the bottom of society, having dreams, not being afraid to go after them. So I feel like he's really inspiring, he's really clever, he's also learning. So there's a lot of people around him that he indirectly does actually learn a lot from, but very likewise, very similar to Harry Potter, because this character is very brave and is somewhat the chosen one, is really able to step into this in a really cool way. And as Chris Hemsworth just has such a big personality, I really do feel like he infuses it into this role. And very similar to Harry Potter, he's just got so many leadership qualities, and he just needs to have a little bit more self-belief in the same way that other people do actually really believe in him. And then ultimately he can become the Optimus Prime that we all know and love, and I feel like that moment is absolutely satisfying in the final act. And then we've got Brian Tyree Henry playing a much younger version version of the future Megatron, but in this movie he's called D16. And of course you know that he's going to have the dark turn at the end of this movie, but I feel like building up to that, they honestly did such a good job with it. So not only did they build a buddy cop friendship between D16 and Orion Pax in such a good way, like I said, they definitely do seed a couple of things in terms of this character was really happy with his life as a minor, he was being really successful, and it's a little bit like the Matrix. So certain characters don't want to know the truth, and they are happy living in their little ignorance, little bubble, and when this is completely burst, and everything that they thought was true ended up being a complete lie, and actually, when this guy was younger, he was just always wanting to follow all of the rules, and was intrigued by Orion Pax in terms of just wanting to break all the rules at the same time, but Orion Pax just unintentionally, constantly just pushes it to the limit, to the point where D16 ultimately then does snap. So I do actually feel like the way in which this character was written and of course voiced was just absolutely legendary. And then we've of course got a little Marvel reunion with Scarlett Johansson playing Elita 1, and I think she, very similarly to D16 actually, I feel like I wish they would have explored that a little bit more in terms of the fact that both of them are really happy actually as minors and were being really successful. Elita 1 in particular was like almost that boss tier level within the minors group. So she really finds it difficult learning the truth, but ultimately I feel like this character is really, really cool and really does put Orion Pax in his place when he needs to be. And then we've got Keegan-Michael who just continues to demonstrate that he is world class at voice acting, as he just does such a good job, honestly, as B. Such a lovable, such a funny, such an innocent character, and actually he should be really annoying, but I feel like the way in which Keegan-Michael voices and plays him is just so good. So actually he becomes a bit of a scene stealer, and I just loved it when this character is able to get all of his transformations, the way in which he's just really in awe and absolutely losing his mind, all of his new powers. You are just literally with him, and like I said, he is just such a lovable character, so really does steal the hearts and minds of the audience. We've got John Hamm over here as well playing Sentinel Prime. Now you can see a mile off where everything is going in terms of all of the storyline material, but you can't really imagine the extent of it, so it really is shocking when you learn the truth about this film. And then there are a number of supporting characters, for example Arachnid, who is actually incredibly powerful and a really, really cool character, and I hope in some way, shape or form we do get to see iterations of this kind of Transformer in the future. So like I said, with Transformers 1, I was a little bit unsure as to whether or not it will stick the landing, but not only does it do that, but it just does it in such an impressive way, and I'm really, really impressed with this movie as a whole, as well as with this franchise, as it did seem at one point that maybe it's not going to be successful, but I feel like they've reinvigorated it, they've refreshed it all, and now it's actually going from strength to strength, especially with the announcement that there's going to be a proper Transformers G.I. Joe movie coming up very soon as well. So I cannot wait to see all of that in the future, but as far as Transformers 1 is concerned, I had such a blast with this movie, and so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a mega 7.5 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of this film? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.